Dietary advice, right? Everywhere you turn, it's a new tip or trick. But honestly, some of the really important stuff gets lost in the noise. This article you sent over about omega-3s, for instance, it's got me thinking.
Oh, absolutely. It's a topic that deserves more attention than it often gets.
Like, did you realize that a huge chunk of the population, something like 70% globally, aren't even close to getting enough omega-3s? That's kind of alarming when you think about it.
It is concerning, yeah. And the article makes a good point. It's not just about being deficient in omega-3s themselves. It's this imbalance that's become so common in our diets. Too much omega-6 compared to omega-3.
Right. That was a big takeaway for me, too. I feel like we're always hearing about good fats versus bad fats, but this whole omega-3 and omega-6 dynamic adds a whole other dimension. So help me wrap my head around it. What's the issue with that imbalance?
So it's important to remember that we need both omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. They're both essential for different bodily functions. But, well, here's the catch. The typical Western diet is basically overloaded with omega-6s, while omega-3s are often lacking.
And that throws things out of whack.
Precisely. You see, when omega-6 is constantly dominant, it can tip the body into a state of chronic inflammation. And that's where the real trouble starts.
Okay, so it's not just about what we're not getting enough of, but also this potential overabundance of omega-6s.
Mm.
What's the problem with that level of inflammation? Isn't some inflammation a natural part of healing?
It is, absolutely. Think of it like a helpful response to injury, your body sending in the troops to repair and recover. But when inflammation becomes chronic, it's like having those troops constantly on high alert, even when there's no battle to be fought. Over time, that constant state of alert can damage tissues and organs, and that's been linked to all sorts of health issues, heart disease, autoimmune conditions, you name it.
So it's less about acute inflammation from an injury, more about this persistent low-grade inflammation simmering beneath the surface, potentially causing damage over time.
Exactly. And this is where those omega-3s come into play as the balancing force, especially EPA and DHA, which are specific types of omega-3s with potent anti-inflammatory effects. They essentially help to dial down that inflammatory response, counteracting the potential overstimulation from excess omega-6.
Fascinating. So if I'm picturing a seesaw, we want to get that balance back, more omega-3s on one side to counter the potential overload of omega-6s on the other. Makes sense. But the article also mentioned that just popping a fish oil supplement might not be the magic solution here. Why is that? I thought fish oil was a good source of these beneficial omega-3s.
It can be, but it's a little more nuanced than that. There are actually different types of omega-3s, and they're not all equally effective when it comes to those anti-inflammatory benefits. The heavy hitters, the ones we really want to focus on, are EPA and DHA, and those are primarily found in fatty fish. Think salmon, mackerel, sardines. Those are your star players.
Okay, so I'm adding those to my grocery list right now. I was surprised to read that even some of those fish, especially farm salmon, might not be as potent as they used to be.
It's true, and it's a reflection of the way we produce food these days. Farm salmon are often raised on a diet that's high in grains, which can actually change their fatty acid profile. This means they often end up with lower levels of EPA and DHA compared to their wild-caught counterparts.
Huh. So it's not just about what we're eating, but being mindful of the journey that food takes to get to our plates. Okay, wild-caught fish for those potent EPA and DHA omega-3s. What about plant-based sources? Asking for a friend who may or may not be a chia seed enthusiast, does that count for anything?
You're on the right track. Plant-based sources like chia seeds, flax seeds, and walnuts, those contain a type of omega-3 called ALA. The catch is that our bodies have to convert ALA into EPA and DHA, and that conversion process isn't always very efficient.
Ah, so like a game of telephone where the message gets a little lost in translation along the way.
Exactly. While ALA has its own benefits, if you're trying to correct that omega-3 to omega-6 imbalance we were talking about, relying solely on plant-based ALA might not be enough to get those optimal levels of EPA and DHA.
Got it. Prioritize those fatty fish for EPA and DHA with plant-based sources like chia seeds as a supporting act. But let's not forget, this whole deep dive started with an article highlighting 7 key benefits of omega-3s. It's not just about heart health, which is what we often hear about. 7 key benefits, right? Okay, lay it on me. What else can these omega-3s do?
Oh, they're quite the multitaskers when it comes to our health. The article breaks it down really well. Want to start with the brain-boosting stuff?
Brain boosting, I'm all ears, especially these days. Anything that helps with focus and memory, sign me up.
Well, it turns out that DHA, one of those powerhouse omega-3s we talked about, is a major component of our brain cells. Think of it as a building block for a healthy brain.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of research linking adequate DHA intake to better cognitive function, memory, even potentially lowering the risk of cognitive decline as we age.
So, like, giving our brains the nutritional support they need to function at their best both now and down the road. I'm seeing a theme here. But you know what really surprised me? The link between omega-3s and mood? I wouldn't have put those two together.
It's a fascinating area, and there's more and more research coming out about it. Remember that whole link between omega-6 and chronic inflammation?
Right, the seesaw.
Exactly. Well, there's a growing body of evidence suggesting that chronic inflammation might actually be a contributing factor in mood disorders, things like depression and anxiety.
So by helping to regulate inflammation, bringing that seesaw back into balance, omega-3s could indirectly have a positive effect on our mental well-being.
That's the idea. By addressing the root cause, which in this case could be that underlying chronic inflammation, those omega-3s could have this ripple effect, leading to a better mood, more emotional resilience, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's pretty remarkable. It really highlights how interconnected everything is in our bodies. What we eat impacting not just our physical health, but our mental state too. It's a lot to process.
Right.
The article also mentioned something about vision, right? That caught my eye, no pun intended.
Yes, it did. And there was that stat about omega-3s potentially reducing the risk of macular degeneration. That was a big one. Macular degeneration is a leading cause of vision loss as we age.
And it's the central part of the retina, right? The macula.
That-
I remember reading about that.
You got it. And what's interesting is that studies are suggesting that people who have higher intakes of omega-3s, especially DHA, might be less likely to develop this condition.
DHA again. It's like the MVP of omega-3s.
Yeah.
So another case of these essential fatty acids acting as protectors. We talked about the brain, we talked about mood, now vision. What about skin? The article touched on that too, right? I'm always up for anything that promises healthier skin.
Well, you're in luck. Omega-3s are important for skin health, too. They actually become part of the skin cell membranes themselves, which helps their strength and flexibility.
Okay, so they're kind of like building blocks for healthy skin cells.
Exactly. And what this means is that omega-3s can contribute to a more resilient skin barrier, one that's better at holding in moisture and protecting itself from environmental damage.
Interesting. So it's not just about what we put on our skin, but also how we nourish it from the inside out. Okay, that makes sense. And of course, we can't forget about the heart. That's the one everyone associates with omega-3s, right?
For good reason. Omega-3s have been shown to support heart health in a number of ways. They can help lower triglycerides, a type of fat found in our blood, which, in excess, can increase the risk of heart disease. And some studies suggest they can help lower blood pressure, too, and even promote a healthy heart rhythm.
Okay, so multiple benefits for cardiovascular health. But this is where I got a little confused. The article mentioned fish oil supplements, which I thought were supposed to be good for your heart, but then it said they might not be as effective as we once thought, at least, not the standard ones. It said something about highly concentrated supplements being different. Can you clarify that?
Absolutely. So your standard fish oil supplement usually contains a blend of EPA and DHA, but what research has shown is that EPA might be the more important player when it comes to certain heart health benefits, especially at higher doses.
So it's not enough to just grab any old fish oil supplement off the shelf.
Right. If you're looking for those targeted heart protective effects, you want to look for a supplement that has a higher concentration of EPA specifically. The article actually mentions a couple, Vasepa and Amarin. These are prescription-strength supplements, meaning they have much higher doses of purified EPA. Studies have shown that these particular supplements can actually significantly reduce the risk of major cardiovascular events, especially in people who are already at high risk for heart disease or have high triglyceride levels.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like the difference between taking a multivitamin and then taking a specific supplement targeted at a particular deficiency. It sounds like these EPA supplements are a whole different ball game than your average fish oil pill.
Exactly. And it's crucial to remember that these are medical interventions, so you don't want to self-prescribe. It's always best to talk to your doctor to figure out if they're right for you.
Good point. It's about having all the information and making informed decisions with your healthcare provider. Okay, so we've covered brain power, mood regulation, vision, skin, heart health. What about inflammation? The articles seem to emphasize that as a major benefit of omega-3s.
It's huge, and we've touched on it throughout our conversation. Remember how we talked about EPA being a powerful anti-inflammatory?
Yeah, the seesaw, right.
Yeah.
Bringing things back into balance.
Exactly. Well, that has implications for a whole range of inflammatory conditions. For example, there are studies showing that omega-3 supplementation can actually reduce joint pain and stiffness in people with rheumatoid arthritis, which is an inflammatory condition. Some people have even been able to reduce their reliance on anti-inflammatory medication by increasing their omega-3 intake.
Wow, that's amazing. So omega-3 is potentially helping to manage a chronic condition like arthritis.
Yeah.
It's huge. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. Brain, mood, vision, skin, heart, inflammation. What about that last benefit from the article? What did we miss?
Yes. We've touched on it indirectly, but the article also highlights the importance of omega-3s for metabolic health.
Metabolic health, that's a big one these days. What does that even mean in this context?
It encompasses a whole range of things: blood sugar regulation, insulin sensitivity, even body composition.
So it's like omega-3s are these master regulators working behind the scenes to keep everything running smoothly.
That's a great way to put it.
It really makes you wonder why we aren't talking about these benefits more.
Right.
It's like, if omega-3s are this good for us, this versatile, why aren't they getting more airtime?
Yeah, it is kind of a head scratcher when you think about it. I mean, there's the obvious stuff: food companies pushing processed foods, quick fixes, fad diets, you know the drill.
Oh, absolutely. We're bombarded with so much information, it's hard to know what to focus on.
Yeah.
And maybe we're just wired to gravitate towards the new and shiny, the quick wins.
Yeah, it's the instant gratification culture, right? And omega-3s, they're more like the tortoise in the story: slow, steady, but ultimately winning the race. Their benefits aren't always immediate. They build over time as you consistently nourish your body.
Makes you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it? Sustainable health, not just quick fixes.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that our bodies are complex systems and they thrive on balance.
Mhm.
Omega-3s are just one piece of the puzzle, but they're a pretty crucial piece when it comes to that whole balance equation.
Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of omega-3s, what's the one thing you hope listeners take away from this conversation?
I think the most important takeaway is to be proactive. Take control of your health, be informed, and make conscious choices that support your well-being. Even small changes can make a big difference over time. Add some fatty fish to your diet a couple of times a week. Sprinkle some chia seeds on your yogurt. Talk to your doctor about whether a concentrated EPA supplement is right for you.
It's about being empowered,
Right.
having the knowledge, and then taking action.
Exactly. And remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health.
Couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, it's time for us to surface from this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating world of omega-3s with us.
Until next time.
Take care.